Okay, you're very welcome back to the Rossie Podcast. I'm joined this week by the Roscommon Herald sports editor Ian Cooney to look back on Roscommon's 7-point defeat to Meath in Park Talton in Navan on Sunday. Ian, I suppose it's been all plain sailing to date. Unfortunately, Roscommon came unstuck in Navan by 7 points. A bit of a surprise probably by that margin, but anyone who wasn't expecting a big Meath performance probably was underestimating them.
Yeah, Dara, I think it was disappointing that pretty much the game was done and dusted with about 10 minutes to go. Once Conor Duke and Owen Frayne hit those, I think they hit about three 2-pointers in the space of about 3-4 minutes. And that was game over. Like, the life was sucked out of Roscommon at that stage. And, I think Meath were probably, they had a couple of more chances to inflict more damage on the scoreboard towards the end of the game. I think I remember when the hooter went, was it Morris or Frayne had another free and he kicked it wide. So, Meath were in control of the game for large parts. And overall, it was a disappointing Roscommon performance. Something that they should have seen coming. I think anyone with a fair knowledge of the game would have expected Meath to perform like the way they did in front of their home crowd. They're on a bit of a run at the moment under Robbie Brennan, and it was a bit of a wake up call for Roscommon in the end.
Yeah, because it kind of felt, even just after the first 5 minutes, Meath kind of took control around the middle of the field. Roscommon lost those early kickouts. Now they kind of got control of it then for another about maybe 10 minutes and it flipped back. But I suppose in a way, with these new rules, 4 points at half time just didn't feel enough with the breeze that was there. We've seen a lot of games turn, and I felt like maybe Roscommon needed to be maybe 7 or 8 up with that window. It felt like there was trouble already even at half time.
Yeah, I don't think there was really anyone thinking that Roscommon were genuinely going to hold out initially at half time. But you have to remember, Roscommon kicked the first 2 points in the second half to go 6 points up. And at that stage, you're thinking a team with, Division 1 experience in their back pocket would go on and maybe, quell this Meath rebellion. But unfortunately, then we give away 2, I suppose, horrible goals from a Roscommon point of view in the space of, a minute. And all of a sudden, that 6-point buffer, your platform that you laid for victory, is gone. Now, I still thought for the next 10 minutes we were still in the game. They went ahead, and then we made a few substitutions that changed it up a bit. I think it helped initially. We held the ball then, I think, for maybe about 2 or 3 minutes, and Keeman Keown kicked a good score. I think Conor Hand hit the post, and then the Meath goalkeeper, Billy Hogan, denied Diarmuid Murtagh a goal chance. And then all of a sudden, then it just changed in an instant. I mean, those 3-pointers those 2-pointers just came so quick. And once they came, there was no way back for Roscommon after that.
Yeah, because again, the wind has played a massive part, and not having it in the second half was crucial, because Meath had the option of 2-pointers. Unfortunately, from a Roscommon's perspective, it was never on. I mean, unless you had, I know the Meath keeper kicked a couple of 45s against that strong wind in the first half, but realistically, Roscommon were never going to have an opportunity at a 2-pointer. So you were already playing catch up in a way, even though you were still in the game.
Yeah, I think if you look at the games so far, and I suppose maybe the Galway-Donegal game is the exception, where Galway built up such a big lead at half time, but in Roscommon's games against Down and Monaghan, they had the wind in the second half. And I think it takes a team, in any game, it takes, teams 15 minutes maybe to sort of get their bearings, just adjust to the conditions, play the conditions, and that's 15 minutes gone and a half. So by the time Roscommon sort of began to hit their stride in the first half, they just didn't have enough of scores on the board. And once the midfield battle was lost and Diarmuid Murtagh was tied up the way he was, we just couldn't get any traction going at all, and was kind of more sort of individual moments. Like, I'm thinking of a couple of good points by Enda Smith. Keeman Keown made a dart through the middle, got a good score. Dylan Ruan just kind of launched a shot from out in the next parish. It was kind of those individual moments as opposed to anything coherent Roscommon were doing in attack to open up that 4-point lead at half time. And yeah, the writing was on the wall. And once you're losing, as I said, that midfield battle where Meath were utterly dominant, and they just they just ran through us too easily, you know, when they won those breaking ball. And at the end of the day, I think it just came down to who wanted it more. And unfortunately, from a Roscommon perspective, it was Meath.
Yeah, and I suppose the 2 quick fire goals would probably disappoint Davy Burke the most. I mean, look, anyone can concede a goal. It's following it up then 30 seconds later with, you know, another goal. And maybe just over the years, we have this tendency of having maybe those spells where we actually do concede a large amount, whether it's a quick fire goal or maybe it could be 1-3, 1-4 without response. That probably is, you know, the area again where he'd be looking at, said, like, if we concede a goal, you can't be conceding another one straight after.
Yeah, I mean, the goals came just so quickly. I mean, I think Davey talked afterwards about sort of Roscommon being naive that, you know, okay, goalkeepers, I suppose they're not allowed slow the kick-outs, you know, after you concede a goal. But, you know, all of a sudden we had just finished writing down the first goal and all of a sudden the ball was in the net for a second time. So, you know, there was a need for calm heads in that Roscommon team when Meath scored the first goal. But unfortunately, we didn't see them. And as I said, once Ronan Jones got that second goal, you know, the momentum was really, really with Meath. But as I said, there was a 10-minute spell after that I thought that, you know, we kind of got back into the game. We controlled it. But, you know, just we were never convincing during the game, Darryl. We had a couple of mini scoring spurts during the game, but sort of, you know, when Jimmy Murta was tied up by Donald Keoghan the way he was, unfortunately, there wasn't really another forward that stepped up to the plate like we needed to, because we can't be dependent on Jimmy Murta to shoot the lights out in every game. And, you know, he's not going to be 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 in every game. And in fairness, Meath got their matchup spot on. They tied down Diarmid, and there was no one really to step into the firing line to take up the slack.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was what I was going to ask. I mean, okay, Diarmid scores 12 points. I know it's with kind of new rules. So, we got the 4-2 pointers last week, but 12 points out of the 25 against Monaghan. Now, we still scored 17 this week, even though Diarmid got none. I think Kieran got 3. I think we have a 2-pointer and a 3. Donny Smith got nothing. Enda Smith got 3. Probably was decent for the first 40 minutes or so. I suppose you just don't want to be too reliant, as you say there, on Diarmid Murta, because I suppose, you know, he was never a secret, but I think people would have, especially Meath, would have looked at him against Monaghan, you know, the kind of the on the loop, getting those 2 pointers. They did their homework on it, and fairness, Donald Keoghan is being one of those consistent defenders, you know, one of those stalwarts for Meath that has always been, you know, probably their most consistent player over the last 10 years, I would say, from what I've seen anyways.
Yeah, and I mean, it was an obvious matchup to put Keoghan on Diarmid, and I mean, I think I can only remember Diarmid getting one shot off at goal during the whole game. Never mind not scoring, but it wasn't as if he was getting shots off and they were going wide. I think he dropped one short in the first half. Now, we had that goal chance in the second half when the ball was squared across from, and Billy Hogan made a great save. But rarely have I seen Diarmid so quiet. But as I said, he's not going to shoot the lights out every week, and you know, we just didn't have that player to come into the team to, you know, kick 7, 8, 9 points like Diarmid had done in previous games, and we suffered.
Yeah, Conor Cox again didn't start. I thought he might have got the start, and it feels like maybe with Conor Cox, he's one of those accurate players that you nearly need him on the field when you have the wind, rather than against it, because he is one of those players that we do have that's not afraid to take shots, but he's very accurate outside that arc. We've seen it in, you know, against Louth and coming on against Monaghan. Very limited game time so far, but he's made the most of it. So, I mean, I don't know how the toss actually went, because some teams now might actually be thinking we want to play against the wind in the first half. So
well, I think Meath won the toss and they elected to play against the breeze. And again, it comes down to that adjustment for the first 10, 15 minutes. You know, teams, as I said, you know, gauging how strong the wind actually is, and you know, there's a lot of sorting out to be done in that first 10-15 minutes. So yeah, maybe if Conor Cox was on the field, you know, we would have maybe kicked a couple of more 2-pointers, but I just think there was a general malaise through the team from the start. We just weren't at it. You know, I think Davy Burke afterwards referred to, you know, the first kick out, I think it was a Roscommon kick out, and his words were, Keith Doyle was nearly put through the stand. So that showed the Meath aggression. They were up for the game. We should have been able to match fire with fire, because this wasn't, you know, a bolt from the blue. We knew what Meath were going to bring to the table. There's a bit of a renaissance going on there, but we just didn't. And unfortunately, we've seen performances like this before. Now, it's not necessarily fatal. If we go and do our stuff in Cork next Saturday night, and you would presume now there's going to be a reaction from the players. But it just leaves us in a small bit of a hole now that we have to dig ourselves out of.
Yeah, because I think I seen someone saying, and they were actually probably right. I mean, the last Division 2 campaign when we were at Derry and Galway, it was actually pretty much flawless. In fairness, I think we got 13 out of 14. But the one before that in 2020, I think we threw away a lead against Laois. I think we lost up in Fermanagh. They were actually the first two games. So we do have a tendency to have, maybe one of these, off days, bad displays in Division 2. But usually, going off track record, the last 4 times we played in Division 2, we've won it. That, in fairness to the lads, they do always bounce back.
Yeah, they do. And I suppose it's actually very interesting that we're sort of in the same situation now as we were in the Championship 2 years ago, where we lost to Kildare and Tullamore, and we had to go to Cork 6 days later to try and get the show back on the road. So we have the same situation now where we've lost to Meath. We've 6 days to turn it around when we go to Cork. Look, if we win in Cork, which I think we will, everything. I wouldn't say everything's okay again, but because you just can't, rule out Roscommon throwing another spanner in the works with a performance like they produced yesterday. But they haven't become a bad team overnight, and our forwards, just haven't, become bad players overnight. So, they just had a bad day at the office yesterday. And let's just see what happens in Cork, what the reaction is. I think Cork are going to let us play. It's not going to be as intimidating as Páirc Tailteann. I know the Cork hurlers are playing beforehand. How many of those supporters will stay on for the football? So that's something that I suppose will be factored into everything this week as Roscommon prepare to head south.
Yeah, and I think just because of that championship game a couple of years ago, look, if Roscommon win on Saturday, it's not going to probably fully make up to what happened a few years ago. But I know from being there, the fans, the players definitely after, like, that one really hurt Roscommon, leaving Cork that day after what was actually a really decent year up until Kildare and Cork. I suppose to put it wrong somewhat right, they'll definitely probably want to do one on Cork on Saturday.
Yeah, we've been down this road before, as I said. 2 years ago, from what I remember, we started very well and then lost our way, but finished like an express train. And then Conor Daly gets a dubious free given against him. Technically, maybe the referee was right, but I still think in the context of the game at the stage it was at, it was a very harsh free to be given against him. And Cork, go up the field and to get the winner. So, that's in the back of the Roscommon players' minds. I still think, Davy Burke is going to get into them this week. If anyone knows Davy Burke, it's sort of sometimes people accuse him of talking too much. If you heard the interview yesterday after the game, answers were short, they were snappy, they were literally, he wasn't a happy man, he was cheesed off. And I would say there'll be a couple of home truths told to players this week that, they went to Navan yesterday, they knew what was coming, but they still got bullied. So that can't happen again, because Cork are a strong, physical team, big men, but they will let us play. Meath didn't let us play in Páirc Tailteann, and that proved to be our undoing in the end.
Yeah, you could flip it the other way. No one wants to lose a game, and look, it would have been great if Roscommon won 7 out of 7 and won a Division 2 title and went to the Connacht Championship without a thing. You could say the other side, maybe just no harm, just to get that bit of a reality check, because look, Roscommon had done okay the first 3 games, 3 good wins, but just to be a small bit of a reality check sometimes isn't any harm, especially maybe just early on in the year, because there has actually been a bit of talk about Roscommon and their forwards and the new rules. We've been hearing it for years, but sometimes just a reality check. I'm trying to get a positive out of a negative anyway after the weekend. It sometimes work.
Yeah, fair play to you, Dara. Look, I heard there was a lot of talk after the Monaghan game. There was Roscommon and All Ireland's and forwards were mentioned in the same sentence. And to be quite frankly with you, like, it was a load of nonsense in my view. I mean, there's nothing Roscommon have done, in the last 10 years that to suggest that they're going to lift Sam Maguire next, June, July. We hope that's the case, that Roscommon are, will be great. But like the history of this team tells us that, they're not consistent enough against the top teams. And then to throw in a performance like that yesterday, I still think we're obviously good enough to turn this around and get out of Division 2. Like it's not a crisis. Like, we've just lost a game. People just need to take everything, just kind of roll back a bit and take everything into perspective. Yes, we're all disappointed this week, but there's another chance to put it right next Saturday evening in a beautiful pitch, great stadium. And I think that the Roscommon players will rise to that. But this stuff of Roscommon, with the forwards to win All Irelands, you need more than that. You need a midfield and you need a defence that, when a team runs directly at you, that you sort of don't part like the Red Sea. And we've had that problem for a while now. And that problem, to me, it's still there. Of course, we're missing a lot of players as well. We've a lot of guys out injured at the moment. And, hopefully we'll get some of them back for the trip to Cork. And that will make us stronger. But, we're sort of hovering constantly between that maybe 8 to 10 top teams in Ireland. And we just can't seem to get any higher than that. But there's a reason from that, and the reason is the results that we've had over the last few years.
Do you think even Armagh winning the All Ireland last year has just heightened this, maybe not expectation, but belief in maybe the likes of your Roscommons and some other counties that would have always seen themselves, maybe around that 8 or 10, that they've seen Armagh suddenly just go to the next level? That the game in Croke Park against Armagh, it was one of those, the Roscommon forwards didn't really show up, but at the same time, in the second half, we were a man down. We still weren't too far away from them with 10 minutes to go. It is a bit of the Armagh win last year that suddenly people are maybe raising their beliefs and expectations for this Roscommon team in a way.
I'm sure if we didn't have hope, Darragh, we'd have nothing. I mean, you still have to hope that Roscommon, can kick on. I think for Roscommon, to get to an All Ireland semi-final, it will be an achievement. I think that's what everyone wants. To see, like Monaghan have done it over the years. Roscommon, similar populations. Same amount of clubs. We should really judge ourselves on the Monaghans of this world, not the Kerrys and the Dublins and the bigger counties. So I think yes, obviously a lot of teams, not just Roscommon, will get hope from the fact that Armagh did what they did last year. But you got to remember that, like, Armagh competed in a very, very tough Ulster Championship. They had a lot of knocks over the years, but that made them harder in terms of, eventually the tide was going to turn for them. And in fairness, that opportunity presented itself last year, and fair play to them for taking it. And yes, I think Roscommon at the start of the year will be looking at it going, well, if Armagh can do it, why can't we? But you still have to go out and, prove it. And I think, that result against Meath yesterday just brings everyone back down to earth a small bit. And, you realise that Roscommon still have a hell of a lot of work to do before they can be even, considered as being in the All Ireland picture.
Yeah, just one player who came on actually did quite well. Conor Hand was excellent against Monaghan. Did Davy Burke give any reason afterwards why he wasn't starting, or it was a bit of a surprise? I mean, I don't know what.
Yeah, well, look, in fairness to Conor, he buried his grandfather on the Saturday. So I suppose, look, the emotion that comes with that, maybe he just felt that he wouldn't be able in from the start. But I think if I was Davy Burke, I'd be looking at Conor Hand and, saying that, he's a guy that could do a lot of damage in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Just like when he gets the ball, sometimes you feel it's like he's on roller skates, the way he just goes by players. Interesting, he mentioned Cathal Heenan as another player that has been pulling up trees in training, and he can't get him into the match day 26. But I think you might see Cathal Heenan in the match day 26 this weekend, because he did intimate that he's going to have to freshen it up, because look, at the end of the day, it's a ruthless game. If you're picked and you don't do your stuff, there should be someone else there, waiting to take your place. So it'll be interesting to see if the likes of Cathal Heenan, Conor Hand, even Conor Cox, as you mentioned, get on from the start against Cork.
Yeah, and the defence, I suppose, it's been the talk. I mean, look, we've always been on about our forwards. Maybe the defence has always been a bit more of a weak spot, but on the flip side, again, none of the Pádraig Pearse's lads have really come in, and they're mainly all defenders. They like your Davy Murray. I know Ronan Daly has had a couple of starts all right, but you've Niall Daly. I'm not sure what the situation with Conor Daly is either. I think that Brian Stack, for instance, didn't play yesterday as well. So you might have, 3 or 4 players to even go back into that defence. I suppose that's what we have to maybe realise as well, that at the moment that's not the team that will start championship. It's not.
No, but in saying that, I think our full backline hasn't done too badly. I've Pierce Frost, John McManus and Niall Higgins. Don't think you can kind of look at them and say, well, look, they've been taken to the cleaners. They just need protection further out the field. And you'll find in Roscommon that if our midfield doesn't get on top, if we don't win enough of breaking ball, then our forwards kind of, don't have the ammunition to sort of go and get those scores. So that middle third now is even more important, because obviously from kickouts, there's more ball coming out there. And, we were very much second best there against Meath. And consequently, I think our forward play suffered as a result. But yes, there's players to come back in that will definitely strengthen it. But I think our half back line is an issue at the moment, and getting the right 3 people there and even our half forward line that can just get in around midfield and get that breaking ball if it does break. In saying that, I think Keith Doyle has been excellent for the game so far. I think he ploughed sort of a lonely furrow yesterday, but still, I think kicked 2 points, fisted one and kicked a point, made a few vital catches. The problem was he just didn't have enough help around him.
Yeah, finally, just your own opinion. I've been asked nearly everyone, and it's been the talking point of these new rules, and we're 4 games into the league now, so we're over halfway. Lots of discussion what people like, what people don't like. What's your own thoughts on having seen them, up close the last month or so now?
Yeah, like the game is obviously a much better spectacle. A team goes 7-8 points up now, and it was an unassailable lead maybe last year, but now it's not. A couple of 2-pointers, and all of a sudden the game is back in the melting pot. There's a lot of the rules I like. A few that I think that just need to be looked at. I think the idea of a player being able to bring a ball out and kick it over the bar from 40 yards, 40 metres from a free and get 2 points for it, that should be meat and drink to an inter-county footballer. So that'll be one I'd sort of think that they need to look at. I'd hate to think that, sort of for not handing the ball back properly to your opponent, could cost a team a huge championship game down the line. I mean, it's not in a GA player's DNA to hand the ball back to an opponent. Look, if you leave it down beside them, that's fair enough. But if you throw it away, you deserve the ball to be brought back up whatever. But it's too severe of a punishment, and I think that's something that they'll have to look at as well. Yeah, but I'm loving the tap and go, the contests around the middle of the field. The goalkeeper is one that I'm still not convinced of. We're still seeing a lot of hand passing, which obviously these rules were designed to get rid of when a goalkeeper comes up the field. Like, you look at the point that Roscommon did get yesterday after about 3 minutes. So we went over and back the field about 6 or 7 times, hand passed it a good few times. Now we still got a score out of it, but I'm not sure if that's the sort of scores that the FRC want teams to be actually getting. So I think there's a lot of good work been done, but I think there's just a couple of tweaks that have to be made obviously before they bed in for the championship.
Yeah, finally as well, just on the game on Saturday, you're expecting, well, I'm not respecting, you think Roscommon will bounce back in Cork on Saturday, and hopefully, get things back on track going into that last that block of games with Cavan and Westmeath to finish off the league.
Well, if Cork were coming to Roscommon, you'd be putting your mortgage on it, wouldn't you? I mean, Cork don't travel well. I mean, but they seem to be sort of a different beast in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And yet, in those 2 games against Meath and Westmeath, Meath and Westmeath could have won those games. They've been high scoring. I think just the wide open spaces of Páirc Uí Chaoimh will suit us. And I think, Cork have a lot of they keep seem to be undergoing transition. Like they seem to be getting towards a settled team, and all of a sudden, then there's 5, 6, 7 lads missing the following year. Obviously, there's a couple of forwards like Chris Oak-Jones, Mark Cronin. We got to watch those guys, but you'd be expecting the Roscommon forwards to get back to where they were maybe in the previous games and get the job done. The way I look at it, Dara, is that if we can't go to Páirc Uí Chaoimh and beat Cork, given the shape that they're in at the moment, well, then we don't deserve to be playing Division 1 football next year. That we're sort of codding ourselves into thinking that, we're different, that, we're going to, push on now and, not be a top 10 team, but maybe be a top 5 team. I think if we can't go to Cork when, the gun has been literally put to our head now, we need to go and perform. And I would expect that, Davy Burke will get a reaction out of the players, and I think the players will respond. And yeah, I'd be the 6-day turnaround is difficult, but I was always more worried about the first game against Meath, because kind of I had a feeling that Meath were coming, and Meath went back to basics. They've always been known for their hardness, their strength, their steel, their physicality. I think we'll meet a lot of physicality down in Cork, but Cork will let us play. I think that will ultimately prove to be a good thing for us.